This was another escape from reality for me. Little did I know it was the beginning of another addiction. I remember having a difficult relationship with my grandfather from childhood into my teenage years. I could not be a kid or have fun around him, and I was afraid to even talk to him because he would yell and cuss at me. This broke my spirit, and I feared him and resented him. I did not feel I had a proper father figure at home, so I sought father figures outside the home during my teenage years. This put me in a dangerous situation. One man told me he was divorced and needed yard work done at his house. He preyed on my weak mind, and eventually his trust was built, manipulated me into doing sexual acts in front of him. This brought so much shame and caused me to question my sexuality. I was not even attracted to men, so how could I allow this to happen? I blamed myself and started using meth to cope around this time. When I was 18, I got a phone call from my grandma. She said that my mom had passed away. I hadn't seen her since I was 14. And now I find out she is dead. I never got to say goodbye. She died at the age of 34 from cancer. The day I viewed my mother's body, I'd been up for 3 days on meth and whiskey with very little food and water. I remember the feeling as I viewed her at the funeral. It was spiritual death. Although I did not realize it at the time, the Lord was with me. Psalm 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Shortly after my mom passed away, I joined the Army. I was 19. I chose a combat position, not fully thinking through the long-term consequences going to war would have on me. I went to basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky. I remember this was the first time I consistently went to church, mainly because it was my only chance to be away from the drill sergeant. I was baptized, but deep down inside, I really didn't want to give my life over to Jesus. After basic training, the Army sent me to Fairbanks, Alaska. Brr. It was there that my alcohol and sex addiction really took off. I began to engage in risky sexual behaviors, which included several one-night stands. These sexual experiences were not without consequences, as I contracted an STD on 3 different occasions. When sober, I was very shy and reserved. I also had a guilty conscience about random sex, so my solution was to drink enough to free me from my shyness and block out the feelings of guilt and shame, a vicious cycle. During this time in Alaska, a Christian guy in my platoon from Oklahoma invited me to church on several occasions. I went a handful of times, but I felt too guilty and convicted to go consistently. He did give me a very important book you may have heard of, The Purpose Driven Life. I remember thinking I really don't want the book, but I felt guilty about saying no or throwing it away, so I kept it with no intention of ever reading it. In July of 2005, I found out my grandma passed away. I was deploying with my fellow soldiers to Iraq within weeks, so I had only a couple of days to go home and say my final goodbye to her. My grandma did write me a final letter pointing me to Jesus and telling me she made peace with God, but I was so angry with God I didn't think much of it at the time. In August 2005, me and my fellow soldiers deployed to Iraq. We did a 16-month tour. I saw what evil truly looks like. A lot of death, murder, torture, sadness, and despair. I hated seeing kids cry. I lost close friends from the war in Iraq, some from combat, and some to suicide. I felt like a human guinea pig, and I was put into situations that unnecessarily jeopardized my life. this made me extremely angry, and this anger stemmed from fear. There were good moments there too, which I feel are important to remember. One was when I was in a Christian community in Iraq. This kid that I befriended handed me a picture of Jesus. His kindness touched me so much that I gave him the cross my grandma had given me. The other moment was when I was walking on foot through a town in Iraq, and this little girl, she must have been 3 or 4, ran up and grabbed my hand and held it tight. She started walking with me. These incidents showed me God's love in a dark place and helped me push through. In May of 2007, I was honorably discharged from the military and moved to Lake Forest, California. What brought me to Lake Forest was a job offer I got from the person sitting next to me on a plane flight. I thought, wow, what are the chances of just meeting someone for the first time, not even knowing them, and they offer you a great job? Although I didn't realize it at the time, God was working in my life. I was grateful to be working in Orange County, but that was about it. On the inside, I felt dead. I did not adjust well to life back in the States and was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, which was related to my combat experiences. The areas where PTSD affect me are my sleep, which is never good. I'm always on the alert. It's hard for me to let my guard down or relax. I'm often paranoid of being harmed physically by people. I have panic attacks when I'm in crowds and look up at windows to make sure there's no snipers. I know it sounds crazy to do these things, but I depended on this for my survival, so it became as natural as brushing my teeth. I never grieved the loss of my mom, my grandma, or my fellow soldiers. I started using opiates and alcohol with my neighbor to kill the pain. I felt like everyone I loved or cared about was gone and would abandon me. These issues kept me isolated and from letting good people into my life. Not one person was big enough for me to blame, so I blamed God for everything. I was so angry with him and held him responsible for everything that went wrong in my life. This was out of my own ignorance and lack of knowledge of who God really is. I came to the point where I decided to take my life. I made one phone call thinking if they don't pick up, at least I tried to reach out before killing myself. I'm grateful my aunt answered the phone and picked me up. I came to the point of feeling like suicide again, except this time I got on my knees on my bathroom floor and told God, I give up, I'm sorry, and I need your help. My pride was finally broken. I cried like I never cried before in my life, but these were tears of joy and healing. I felt a peace that was so strong that I get chills thinking about it. This time when I reached the end of my rope, I let go and took God's hand. I could sense God leading me to start reading the Bible. I started in one of the Gospels, and I felt led to start reading the Purpose-Driven Life as well. So now I knew God was good, and I loved Him, but I was still scared to go to church. I feared judgment that I had received in the past. But finally I prayed, Lord, if you want me to go to church, I'll do it for you. A good friend from work brought me to Saddleback. And there was something different about this church. I felt love and acceptance for the first time, not judgment and condemnation. Amen. My personal relationship with the Lord was strong, and I thought that was all I needed to stay sober. I'd be able to go a few days and even went 30 days once, but I kept relapsing with drugs and alcohol. I was using my own power, not God's. The neighbor I used drugs with could tell a change had happened in me, and I told him what had happened. He wondered why I didn't want to party as much anymore. I gave him a Purpose-Driven Life book during that time. The last contact I had with him was a voicemail from him telling me that the book was speaking to his heart. Unfortunately, that's the last time I heard from him. He died a few days later of a drug overdose. It was a tragic situation, but it helped me get serious about getting sober. I knew if I did not stop, I would die. My first 30 days of sobriety were at a secular recovery program. This program helped me a lot during the first month. That being said, I did not personally feel comfortable there because I knew my higher power was Jesus and it was not Christ-centered. So I checked out Celebrate Recovery at Saddleback. I knew after the first meeting in the men's chemical dependency group that Celebrate Recovery is where God wanted me to be, so I stuck around. I remember gaining sobriety with alcohol and drugs and how good it felt. And to be honest, I thought that was all God was going to ask me to work on. But alcohol and drugs was just the beginning of my road to recovery. I never thought I was a sex addict and didn't believe pornography was a problem. God has a way of getting my attention, and that peace I felt started fading and was replaced with great despair and depression. I felt God leading me to go to the sex addiction group for the first time. I thought, surely I'm not one of those people. But when I heard the sharing from the other men, I realized this is where I needed to be, and I was not alone. I relapsed many times before gaining a good amount of sobriety for sex addiction. I needed to learn the lesson from the pain of relapsing instead of letting it defeat me. It was not until I learned that I was using porn to cope with life that I was finally able to turn to God for comfort, not my addictions, because God is the only one who can truly help me and comfort me from the pain of life. I joined a step study within a couple months of attending CR. The questions really helped me work through the issues that were at the root of my sin addictions. A question that stood out to me was, how have my past expectations of myself and others been unrealistic? No one ever met my expectations, especially myself. I realized that this thinking set me up for disappointment, which would lead me to isolate and fuel my addictions. Celebrate Recovery helped me see that God is the only one who can satisfy me, meet my needs, and never let me down. Amen. Principle 1 is where I realized I'm not God. I admit that I'm powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing and that my life is unmanageable. I'm currently applying this principle to a new area of recovery for me, which is codependency. For me, this principle is not a one-time deal. There's always something I need to give over to God. A new area of recovery God wants me to apply this principle to, or a change in my heart. Also, I would not be where I am without my accountability partners and sponsors who have been there walking alongside me. God has had people at every stage of my recovery that I have helped and that have helped me along this road to recovery. If I did not have those authentic, godly relationships, I would not be where I am today. I'd like to share some of the light the Lord has shed on the darkness in my life. When my mom passed away, I was blinded to the fact that the Lord took care of her in her last days. A man picked her up when she was homeless, and he was a believer. I met him at the funeral, and he told me how much he loved her, and that she started going to church with him, and she loved the Lord. Amen. Also, that she had a picture of us kids and told him how much she loved us. He was by her side when she went into a coma and when she passed away. He was her angel, and he brought closure to me, and I know my mom is fully restored in heaven, free from pain and rejoicing with the Lord. Me and my grandma were very close in her last years, and there was restoration in our relationship. My grandfather is in the nursing home. He's sober now. Recovery has helped me forgive him. He's a different person now. We enjoy coffee together and laugh when I visit. Only God can heal broken relationships like that. God changed my view of women as well. I view women with love and respect and not as objects. I truly appreciate women and know they're to be treasured as gifts from God. The changes Jesus made in my life have also inspired me to write music, and I believe it's to be used to reach the broken and the lost for His kingdom. I'm also going to school full-time for a degree in Christian counseling, which is it's a big deal for me because I dropped out of high school and never thought I'd be going to college. My life verse is Jeremiah 17, 7 through 8. But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in Him. They'll be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. This verse helps me to realize how important it is to trust the Lord, especially when things are going wrong. I faced many challenges in recovery, and there were many times where I wanted to give up. And it was and still is a struggle for me to make meetings. But that being said, those times were the times that I felt the most blessed by the end of the meeting. I also want to share the victories that God's made since recovery. Today I'm celebrating 3 years sober from alcohol and drugs. And 2 years of sexual purity. I could not do this without God's power and taking it one day at a time. When considering leadership, I had a lot of excuses not to become one. Social anxiety, feeling inadequate, crippling fear, but glory to God because He uses my weaknesses and turns them into strengths for His glory. Amen. My leadership started at The Landing, which is a program that helps teenagers overcome their hurts, hang-ups, and habits. It was such a blessing to be involved in the lives of teenagers. I had many challenges and victories there. It helped me to fully rely on God's power and not my own. After about a year there, I felt God leading me back to Friday night at Celebrate Recovery. I interviewed to be a leader, and during the interview, I shared my struggle with being a combat veteran, and that the veterans need a group so that they can have God's healing in their lives. The doors have been opened because of the outstanding heart of the leaders, and there will be a group for combat veterans starting soon. I'm a greeter on Friday night at Lake Forest. Because of my social anxiety, it forces me to depend on God. Serving the Lord in this way